What's up, guys? Got a video for you here today. Today, a little different something. I got a collaborative video done with another channel here on YouTube, being Hammerheart Metal Reviews. He will be linked down in the description, obviously. Go scope him out. He's an awesome channel. He does really good reviews of all kinds of good stuff, and we tend to have almost the same opinions on almost everything when it comes to metal. So, yeah, so he's going to be doing a review. It's going to be linked up down in the description to go to his channel and check it out. But this is going to be a review of the new Midnight record, Let There Be Witchery. Comes out March 4th, which I'm filming the night before, but today, I guess, because it's when you're seeing it. So I'll get to talking about that here in a second. Beforehand, we were drinking Ostrobramski Kvass. Very good stuff. Big fan. Apparently, this is a twist off. I'm so used to beer drinking that I felt the need to grab one of them. But yeah, quality. That's good as usual. Anyway, so basically, this is the 5th Midnight record that comes out on Metal Blade, second one on Metal Blade, right after Rebirth and Blasphemy, excuse me, from was it 2019 or 2020? I think it was 2020. So I was very excited to hear this is coming out. And yeah, so the first track, it's 10 tracks, and it starts off with the tune Telepathic Nightmare. Telepathic Nightmare, oh, excuse me. We're listening to Darkthrone in the background. This is the Underground Resistance. I thought this kind of blackened heavy metal thing would be a great thing to have in the background. And a lot of guys hate on it later, Darkthrone. You're wrong, dude. This is awesome. Alright, anyway. So, the first track, Telepathic Nightmare, it kind of opens up the album with like this just kind of eerie sound with these kind of creepy-ish 80s style intros, you know, where they have just like some noise that you don't really know what's going on, and then you hear like a high, noisy, eerie guitar just in the background kind of going on with a bunch of feedback and some stuff like that, and then it just breaks right into this riff. It's great. It kind of, so this beginning, this intro riff, and kind of throughout this whole song, it tends to embrace more of a black thrash style, which is interesting because Midnight's usually stayed a little bit away from the thrash. It's definitely reared its head once or twice, but I think it's like a lot heavier than usual, and it's actually pretty welcome. I like it a lot. It's got some of that almost dissonant thrash metal riffs of like a lot of the German bands, and it seems like that they're using kind of like these, I don't want to call them augmented or diminished chords, but they're definitely some dissonant harmonies, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of like Killing Technologies or like Or Noir's Black Thrash Attack kind of stuff, including a bunch of tremolo riffs that are also in there, which remind me, as well as Black Thrash Attack. Yeah, it's a ton of clashing stuff, and that's interesting because it's usually a really rock and roll blues based band. And the chorus is, you know, a lot of like hardcore influence, which you would kind of expect in this kind of speed metal style. Number 2 is basically, it's Frothing Foulness. It's basically like a punky speed metal style with a lot more stylings like the first record, Satanic Royalties, and it's very familiar for the style. And the coolest part I thought for me was the kind of catchy sing-along chorus, and there's like the grunt. It's like, ugh, Frothing Foulness. It's great, and it's, you know, it's kind of got a real catchy style to most of the choruses and a lot of this release. So it's really cool. And then the 80s kind of continues going on throughout the solo section and into the rest of the song. It's great, like textbook 80s speed metal stuff. Number 3 is the song In Sinful Secrecy. It starts off with like a lot of like traditional metal style riffs, almost bordering on like AOR and hard rock, you know, traditional early heavy metal. And then it kind of starts breaking up and getting a little more quick, going into some tank style stuff, maybe some Motorhead stuff. It's a stupid catchy track, man. It's a great, great song. The choruses are a really strong thing so far. Again, all 3 of these first tracks are really, really good with some really catchy choruses. And then there's a solo in the intro I didn't say, which is also really cool, and then another one after the choruses. There's 2 in total, which is different because there's not usually that much intricate, you know, songwriting I don't want to call it intricate songwriting, intricate kind of soloing going on in Midnight. It's usually a lot more straightforward. So number 4 is the second single. It is Nocturnal Molestation. It's a pretty decent song. It's a really formulaic song for Midnight styles. It's got this really heavy Venom style, which you'd expect from Midnight. I mean, it's basically their thing this whole time, especially in the background vocals. It really, really brought me back to some Chronos style stuff, which is interesting and it's cool. But obviously, it's definitely Midnight's thing. It's definitely a bit more of a formulaic tune in comparison to the other 3. I would say it's probably the worst song so far. But again, that's not really knocking anything too hard as it is. So number 5 is the next track, being More Torment. It's got this weird kind of intro groove to it. It really caught me off guard because it sounds like he was almost off for a second, and then it just winds up coming together. It almost has like a sludgy feel, like a weird kind of hoppy, kind of groovy riff. A little bit of like almost like a Celtic Frost feel to it, which is interesting to hear again. He's really wearing his influence on his sleeve, kind of like he always does. Even the vocals in this track are a little bit different than they usually are on the Midnight tracks. I mean, he almost has this like Hellhammer-ish Tom G. Warrior style vocal, and I'm not talking about like the kind of thing that you hear in like this Darkthrone stuff. It's more like the weird vocals that Tom G was doing, or might even have been the other guy in Hellhammer on like the Triumph of Death album, or EP or demo, because I know it was more than just Tom G doing vocals on that one. So that's kind of cool. It's definitely a slower song, but it also fits really well with that kind of groovy Celtic Frost style. And the solo is like this auditory chaos. It kind of calls back to that little like the wailing 80s kind of soloing, but it's a really dissonant style for them. It's a really cool contrast with this like almost sludgy, slower, groovy song. But then right back, number 6, it picks right back up with Let There Be Sodomy. This might be my favorite track on the album. It's definitely one of them. I'll mention the other one, the other contender. But it's Black Thrash again, straight up. It's coming right back at you. The Ora Noir riffs are right in your face. I have no idea if Athanar listens to Ora Noir, but he's probably listening to some Destruction, and it's very much so a similar style, because obviously there's a big influence on that band. You get a bunch more of those awesome Black Thrash Attack style tremolo riffing again, and it's a super headbangable song. It's a fun, quick, well-executed song. It's mildly dynamic, where it feels very build-upable. Like the choruses slow down a little bit, but it starts going real quick, and it keeps going real good. Number 7 is the song Devil Virgin. This song is the other contender for my favorite track on the album. I don't know which one I like more. I guess it definitely has to depend on my mood for the day, but it's an automatic Merciful Fate style song. It's so awesome. It reminds me almost automatically of Come to the Sabbath. It was one of the first things that popped in my head when I heard it. And it's got this really percussive, syncopated instrumentation in it. Not necessarily with the like dancey disco beat, which is obviously all over the track. I mean, what's more Merciful Fate than that? It's got a great traditional heavy metal style, and I think it's an absolute load of fun. It's a nice change from the whole rest of the album. It was a lot more generally in a style, rather than being like a band-specific style song, and that definitely I picked up on a ton of Merciful Fate stylings. Number 8 is the song Snake Obsession. It's got a really cool melodic chorus riff to it, but I would say it's a little bit more of a forgettable track. Kind of like Nocturnal Molestation. It's a really formulaic song, which is whatever. It's cool. It's fun. I would call it more of a filler track in comparison to some of the other ones. But, this song fits really well with the hideous cover art, which obviously doesn't matter much. Having a bad cover doesn't make the album bad by any means, but it's just got like that cheesy 80s feel to it, which fits well with the cheesy 80s styled art. Number 9 is Villainy, Wretched Villainy. Now this one has more like a street rock, traditional heavy metal feel to it. You know, it's definitely like drunken brawl, bar fight, or like right on the sidewalk kind of fight music, and it's really fun. It has kind of a similar atmosphere to like the Paul Di'Anno era of Iron Maiden to it, or like Bon Scott era AC/DC. You guys get what I'm getting at here, you know, Trans Am's, denim shirts, you know, cigarettes in your shirt thing here. It's a cool thing. It's got these big open chord verses, which again brings it back to that kind of hard rock style rather than just being straight metal. But then it brings in like these catchy anthemic choruses. And seriously, one of the tightest things about this record is these choruses are so catchy and they're so fun. And then at the end, there's this awesome solo. I shouldn't say at the end, it's more of a 2/3 of the way through the song, like most solos tend to be in metal. It's got this like traditional 80s rock and roll kind of style to it, but then it starts getting into these really good harmonies at the end of the solo, and it sounds so good, and it really brings back some of that more Wishbone Ash kind of hard rock, April Wine. It's really, really cool stuff. And then the last track, Sex Witchery. I don't really know what to call that word, SZEX, but whatever. Oh, this is the first single that was released. I listened to it when it came out. I liked it. I wasn't super impressed with it. I think it's a great song, but you know, it was more of basically what Midnight does. It's got a really Tank feel to it again, you know, Tank and the Motorhead and the Venom kind of style. And it's got some really traditional metal riff styles to it in the verses, and it's like a groovy traditional metal. It's a lot of fun, you know. It's kind of a little bit on the heavier side rather than just regular heavy metal, a little closer to the speed metal. But the chorus riff is also the intro riff, and I didn't realize until he started doing the vocals over it. Man, does that sound like Diamond Head. And that is super cool. And this guy, the guy does his homework. Athenar knows what's up. And I love the fake out ending of the track, kind of, where it sounds like it's ending, but then it just goes into a really slow part, and it almost teeters on some doom metal portions, like little doomy bits of some slow riffing. It's great stuff, man. I love it a lot. So really, to finish up, I like this album quite a bit. It's a great, awesome, fun, melodic record, man. It's got some really cool extra elements that I don't think have ever been on a Midnight record before. There's some spots with a lot more black thrash action than ever before, for sure, and it's just a welcome change to me. It's an even heavier direction than I think they've ever had, and I think it was a little teased on the last record, but this record, I think, is a little bit more towards that style, and it's really, really cool. Now, there's a couple tracks that are here and there a little bit more on the forgettable side, being like Snake Obsession and Nocturnal Molestation, but you know, it's got a little bit of repetition to it, so what can you do? It's not the most thought-provoking and profound record, but it really doesn't have to be. I mean, it's Midnight. They're not trying to write the next Dream Theater or next Opeth album. It's just some good beer-drinking, you know, heavy metal stuff. It's so much fun. I would say it's better than No Mercy for Mayhem or Sweet Death and Ecstasy, and I would say it's about as good, maybe a little less amazing as Rebirth and Blasphemy, mostly because I haven't heard this one, or it's fresher on my mind, I would say. So I would probably put it overall in like the third area of the discography ranking, being, you know, Satanic Royalty, Rebirth and Blasphemy, Let There Be Witchery. Then I would probably put No Mercy for Mayhem, then Sweet Death and Ecstasy as my least favorite of the Midnight material, but that's not what I'm doing here. So overall, I would give it a super strong 7.5 out of 10. It might teeter up to an 8. We'll see. I was debating between the two, but I figured compare this to the other things that you would also call an 8, and I wound up bringing it to a 7.5. I think this is a very solid score, a great record. I will definitely be picking up a copy when I can, and I almost could guarantee it'll be on the top 25 of 2022. So, again, go check out Hammerheart Metal Reviews. I hope you guys enjoyed this collaborative effort between me and him, and keep it greasy.